Hi, I'm Mike Morrissey. Every year, a group of 30-plus medical professionals travel to San Lucas Toliman in Guatemala to perform orthopedic surgery on local children. In March of 2019, I joined the team to document their work. The following is an interview with one of the team members.
My name is Bryan Hennessy. I'm an electrical engineer by education from the Florida area originally, and about half of my life there and half of my life on the West Coast.
How did you become involved with this medical mission?
I moved to Anacortes, Washington in 2003, and I joined a Rotary Club shortly after. I was asked to join as a business owner. Met Dr. Steve Miller at the Rotary Club. He was going solo on a wheelchair distribution trip to Costa Rica, and his partner dropped out at the last minute, so I volunteered to go, and we travel well together. We got along great, and we became good friends.
How did you transition from what you were doing then to the role that you have now?
I went to Steve a year or so after, maybe 6 months after, I don't remember the details, after the Costa Rica trip, and I said, Steve, I'm kind of bored with Rotary. You got something I can help you with or do? And he said, oh, perfect timing, Brian. I have something very important, and I need help with a global grant. So he asked me to do that portion of it. And I was glad to do it through the Rotary Foundation. It requires a lot of paperwork and a lot of electronic paperwork and a lot of justification and reports and things and applications for a global grant. And the grant was to move 2 X-ray machines to this facility here in Guatemala.
How did you transition from what you were doing then to the role that you have now?
I wrote the global grant for the first C-arm, for the small C-arm, and for the full body X-ray machine that Daniel uses downstairs. So we put together a $92,000 global grant. We raised $27,000 and change and had them delivered and set up and are now working with them. In the medical mission world, most of the equipment, all of the equipment is leftover, donated, usually half broken down stuff from the United States, and it all needs fixing. And in that particular mission, which was 4 missions ago, 2016, I fixed a bunch of stuff, and he pretty quickly told me he couldn't do without me.
Is there a job classification for what you do?
The way I understand it, the formal education and definition of the role I play here is biomedical technician.
The other day, I watched you work on a monitor. Can you share with us what you were doing there?
So we got some new anesthesia machines in the OR. We got them a couple of years back. The old ones were really archaic, and these were less archaic, I'll call it. And this was Saturday during screening day, and one of the anesthesiologists came to me and said, we got a broken anesthesia machine. We have 2 monitors on it, and neither one is working. One is scrolling by, and you can't see what it's displaying, and the other won't power up because the power switch is broken. So it's a typical thing that they would call me in to try and debug and fix.
What effect would not having an operating monitor have on the operations this week?
The anesthesia equipment, I was told at the time, and I certainly know it was absolutely critical. We don't have a mission without anesthesia machines. We just flat out don't have it. We have 3 of them because we have 3 ORs going right now. And this would have taken down 1 OR for sure. If we don't have 3 working anesthesia machines, they don't do surgeries.
So how'd you fix them? You don't have spare parts.
The fix was, to me, wasn't that complicated. The first monitor was scrolling by, and when I looked at it, I thought I was going to get into something real high tech because I know about video, and I've designed video controllers and stuff in my electronics career, and it looked to me like a typical video monitor that was missing what's called a sync pulse. And I thought, wow, I'm gonna, first thought was I wish I'd brought my portable oscilloscope because I'm gonna have to debug a missing sync pulse. Once I got into it, took some plates off and got to the connectors, I reseated a connector and it fixed itself. So the sync pulse was probably just missing because of a bad connection. So that made that a lot easier, and it was an easy job that makes you look like you're better than you are. And then, so then I turned to the power switch, and the power switch had kind of broken from people pressing it and had kind of fallen inside. And because it was very intermittent, not working well, people naturally were pressing it harder and harder, trying to get it to work. Well, it broke and fell inside the machine, so it wasn't even accessible. And we started to take the back of the machine apart, to get at the power switch, and it was a pretty major job to get into the back of the anesthesia machine to where the power switch was. And I realized the casing around the monitor that held the power switch was just plastic casing, so I got a hacksaw and just cut a hole in the plastic casing. Fished the power switch out with a pair of needle nose pliers, cut it off, jumpered the 2 wires so it's no longer functional. It's just always on. And there's a master power switch for the whole machine that was completely adequate. You didn't need to turn the monitor off individually. And then I just taped up the hole with black tape.
I also saw you making filters. What was that about?
The filters are also used on the anesthesia machines, and well, this is a typical story of the difficulties of a medical mission like this. I could go into this in all kinds of detail about the thoughts I've had on it, but in essence, the filter removes excess CO2. The way I understand it, from what I've learned from the anesthesiologists in the last few days, the filter removes excess CO2 from the gases flowing in and out of the patient. And the filters are good for a number of surgeries, but then they get pretty saturated, and there's actually white beads in there that do the removal. In the United States, you have cartridges that are made to fit the particular machine, and the cartridge gets spent, you throw it away and put a new cartridge in. Here we don't have that luxury. We didn't have them for the right anesthesia machine. You work with what you have, basically. We're drilling 1-inch holes in the sides of the cartridges, pouring the old chemical out, which is just it's not even sand, it's like a very small gravel, but a light gravel. So we're pouring that out, and we have cartridges made for different machines, and we have excess of cartridges made for different machines. So I'm cutting those open, refilling the throwaway cartridges that we're not throwing away, and taping them shut with sealed plastic tape, and providing them back to the anesthesiologist. And so far, they're working fine. I've done 3 of them so we can keep 2 machines going and have a spare at all times. Early in the mission, 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, I'm called to do some pretty crazy things to pull something together that probably isn't gonna run if I don't. And later in the mission, like now, hopefully I'm not called in for any emergencies because we've got things up and running and we pretty much got a system down. But every year it's different. I get here next year and something that I know very well and have studied in the off time and downloaded data sheets on never breaks again. Something new that I had no idea how to work with brakes, and so I got to jump into that.
So how often does a repairman get to come to your house?
Not very often. No, not very often. I do like to fix things myself. I'm one of those guys that certainly likes to fix things myself.
This is your 7th mission. Have any of the patients had an effect on you?
Well, certainly the biggest effect from this mission on me has been related to Esther, or caused. I don't want to say caused by, that doesn't sound right, but has been Esther's influence. Esther's influence in me started in my 2nd medical mission. My first medical mission, I was pretty stable and just fixing things. I always come down early with Steve. I should add this. I've always come down early. We travel on Tuesday, we get here on Wednesday, before the mission, to get things ready. And I've always done that since the first mission I came on. And that gives us time to go into the OR, put things together, surgical lights, get all that, check everything out, hopefully fix most of what's not working and get it going. And the first mission, it didn't really hit me until check-in day on Saturday that what I've done could maybe affect a child's health or a child's outcome during a surgery. And I had a brief time where my emotions were pretty overwhelming when I realized that I had to sit down. And because all of these, there's 100 kids in here during check-in day, and screening day they call it, and all these little kids running around, and it just dawned on me all of a sudden after looking at that for a couple hours and working with things that, wow, if something I did goes wrong, one of these kids could have a negative outcome as a result of my work. And it was very difficult for me to grasp that and deal with that at first. Heavy emotion, got through it, and I figured, okay, I'm strong and I can handle this now. By my 2nd mission, I figured I'm an old timer and I'm going to handle this now. And they called me down because of a patient. Steve called me down to one of these check-in rooms, screening rooms, because of a patient that he wanted a couple of pictures of. And I had a nice camera, shot a couple pictures of Esther. About 2 or 3 minutes after coming into the room with Esther, and she had 2 horribly clubbed feet. And it was just the absolute most perfect, picture-perfect little Guatemalan girl in Guatemalan attire that I'd ever seen in my life. Obviously very scared, obviously very with her father there, hugging her father. And Steve, 3 surgeons were examining her. And I was pretty overwhelmed with that same kind of emotion at that point that I thought I was done with. And I was hit even harder. And I had to leave the room. I had an uncontrollable urge to attempt to put a smile on this little girl's face because the emotions were extremely strong. So I went up to the bodega, rifled through some boxes to find a stuffed animal to bring back down. And about then, Will Bogle walked in and noticed that I was visibly upset and asked if he could help, and I lost it. I get emotional just thinking about it. It was so powerful. I wrapped my arms around Will and just bawled my eyes out. It hit me so hard. And I recomposed myself and went back downstairs to see Esther and take some pictures of her and do what I was supposed to do.
You're a guy that flies an airplane, right?
Yeah. These kind of emotions don't usually hit me, but occasionally. I said to myself then, the emotions were so powerful, I said to myself at that moment that I'm gonna follow this little girl. I'm gonna make a point of understanding how this mission affects her life. And I've done that for the last 2 years. And the Esther presentation I gave the other day is the result of that, along with a whole lot of other pictures and stories I could tell you all day long about Esther. So Esther did the 2017 medical mission. When we first met Esther, she was brought in. We did the right foot. The left foot was done, and I may get those wrong, I'm not sure, but the left foot was done in 2018 mission. And so she was within 2 months of the 2018 mission. Bryan Hennessy was sending me some photos via email of her with 2 good feet, and he bought her a pair of shoes, and those were very nice to see. I came back in November of 2018, just 5 months ago, and Bryan took me to see Esther at her home. He had never been to her home because she lives in a very small village high in the mountains, about 3 to 4 hours out in the Bach, where Bryan Hennessy lives. We spent 3 or 4 hours with Esther and her family, and it was pretty nice. And the highlight of it was seeing her playing soccer and seeing the smile on her face while she did that.
Oh, thank you, Bryan.